Dance Arts of Columbia provides fitness fun for everyone from 3 years old to adult. Dance Arts is a good environment where the friendly staff makes you feel comfortable. Dance Art feels that dance is an art form that you can experience firsthand by learning tap, jazz, modern, musical theater, lyrical, and ballet. Dance Arts urges you to enjoy a sense of accomplishment while getting fit and having fun. For class information, call 875-1569. Dance Arts of Columbia, serving Columbia since 1979.
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on St. Patrick's Day. Yes, today is St. Patrick's Day, Monday, March the 17th. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And in honor of St. Patrick's Day today, we have a St. Patrick's Day story with Larry Brown. Good to have you here.
Not Larry Green, but Larry Brown.
Larry Brown, right.
I
didn't get that either, Larry.
Close enough.
So what's your story about?
Well, I have a question for you to start off with. What do an Irish priest and Mark Twain National Forest have in common?
What do an Irish priest and Mark Twain National Forest have in common?
Yeah.
I don't have the slightest idea.
The answer is wilderness. Well, let me explain.
Okay, I guess the story is going to explain it more.
It will. Well, do you know the Irish potato famine?
Yeah.
Devastating, particularly the year 1848. Thousands of people died. Thousands of people fled. Thousands of people came to the United States. Between the years 1840 and 1860, so many came to St. Louis after first being on the eastern seaboard that it pushed St. Louis up to being, at that time, third largest city in the country. I mean, this was an Irish migration of great proportions. But they were caught in poverty, not finding employment, being at the bottom rung of the socioeconomic ladder. And in 1849, in St. Louis itself, there was an outbreak of cholera, particularly among the poor Irish, and then a fire such that 4,000 people were killed in St. Louis that year with cholera and the fire. Well, into that milieu came one John Joseph Hogan. He grew up in Ireland, County Limerick, and as a child was inspired by the Irish rebels trying to get home rule for Ireland. He was also inspired by the stories of priests who went into the mission fields. And he chose to become a priest. And in the midst of that decision, of course, was the Irish potato famine. He was so much aware of the suffering going on in migration that he chose to finish his seminary training in St. Louis, and so arrived in 1849, right into the middle of this tremendous poverty. He saw the plight of all of the Irish, and when he was ordained in 1852 in St. Louis, he thought he was called to serve the poor Irish. He saw the famine, he saw the coffin ships that would bring the people to the United States. He saw the prejudice and violence, both anti-Catholic prejudice and anti-Irish. In fact, folks that would go looking for a job and find signs that say, Irish not allowed. It was that kind of discrimination. And so often they were taking the lowest jobs if they could find them. Men, maybe in the railroads, but women and children left. Well, John Joseph Hogan saw this despair and knew that that was what he was called to do. He pleaded with his bishop, who allowed him to be on what Hogan called his mission to Missouri. And he went about trying to find the scattered Irish Catholics around the state, and made the decision that he would create a place where they could have a safe haven. He managed to put together enough money to buy thousands of acres in southern Missouri, in the counties of Oregon and Ripley, in what was government property, between the Current River and the 11-Point River, and set up a place where young Irish families could come and farm. It was good soil there, had lots of springs, forest resources, wildlife, and he set this up in 1857, and by 1859 he had 40 families established, doing well. And it was all interrupted by the war between the states. Of course, between 1860 and 62, this was kind of no man's land in the Ozarks. And Union troops, Confederate troops, and bushwhackers, all of them came through, burned the houses, destroyed the crops, took the wildlife, and one by one all these families were killed or fled and essentially disappeared. And John Joseph Hogan then gave up the enterprise and moved to northwest Missouri. The land then basically returned to its natural state. Now, Hogan went on to become the first bishop of St. Joseph in 1868, and then the first bishop of Kansas City in 1880, and went on to live a great career. The Irish settlement then disappeared, and it was known as the Irish Wilderness. He called it his wilderness community. Now, other folks called it Hogan's Irish Eden, but it began to be known, and so it was appearing on the maps as the Irish Wilderness. Well, the Mark Twain National Forest was established in the 1930s, but in 1984, the U.S. Congress designated 16,000 acres to be a wilderness area within the Mark Twain National Forest and called it the Irish Wilderness. Now, still, folks didn't know exactly what that meant. There were rumors and stories and legends, but no one knew until Leland and Crystal Payton did the research and found, indeed, the history of this community, published their book, The Mystery of the Irish Wilderness, but they also published the journals of Father Hogan. And he kept journals all the time, and late in his life, he wrote his life story called 50 Years Ago on the Mission in Missouri, and 2 different collections of his story, and we now have that story. Well, you can go today to the Irish Wilderness. You can hike and enjoy the springs, the karst topography, the oak hickory forest. Occasionally you might find the ruins of a settlement, of a house, or some of the relics left behind, but I'm convinced if you spend any time at all in the Irish Wilderness, you'll hear their voices and know that once there was a thriving community.
That is, and this is all a true story.
Yes,
True story. So
history.
the wilderness is still there in Mark Twain National Forest.
The Irish Wilderness.
It's called the Irish Wilderness on the map when you see it?
Correct. It's a designated wilderness area by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
The Irish Wilderness.
Are there a lot of ruins that people?
No, not much, just a few.
But you can still come across
You could
them?
still come across.
Yeah.
the
Well,
evidence.
Larry, thank you so much for sharing that story. That was a perfect St. Patrick's Day story.
Well, good.
Yeah. Have you got any events coming up that people can come and listen and watch you?
I don't have any public performances coming up that are scheduled right now, but there'll be some later.
Okay.
Certainly.
So, and you've got DVDs. You have a DVD out. You have
Yes,
CDs.
yes.
If people would like to
Have some stories in a couple of anthologies that are published.
How do they get in touch with you?
Well, contact me at www.brownstory.com.
www.brownstory.
Or that's my website, but you can also contact me at brownstory@hotmail.com.
Okay. All right. And you will respond back to them.
Will do.
Okay. So you got anything special planned for St. Patrick's Day?
Well, of course, we're going to have cabbage and anything green tonight.
Okay. All right. Happy St. Patrick's
Greens.
Day to you. All right. And to all of our listeners. Tomorrow, Vera Massey will be with us. We're out of time for today. Travis McMillan is our director from the Reynolds Journalism Institute. Audio is Pat Akers from KBIA. Our floor director is Connor Hickox. And our assistant producer and guest coordinator, Uncle James Bowser. If there's something you'd like to hear or see, I would love to hear from you. Drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. And happy St. Patrick's Day to you and yours.